2011, a cramped apartment factory in Seoul. An office and showroom separated only by a curtain. About 6 people working. 3 months in, 0 revenue. Fast forward to 2024. Revenue, over $560 million. In just over a decade, revenue grew 7,000 times. This is Gentle Monster. How does a brand with zero fashion heritage get a tech giant like Google to bet $100 million on them? How does it reach a $3.2 billion valuation matching luxury's margin without a single year of luxury history? Today, we're going to dissect how this 6-person startup cracked luxury's margin, why their buildings do the advertising, what sits behind that 84% gross margin, and whether the engine can keep running without the heritage. Welcome to the Coup Report. Let's dive in. Who is Kim Han-guk, the founder of Gentle Monster? Born 1981, Korea University, journalism major. Worked at a finance company for a year, then quit. Became an executive at an English education company called Camp Korea. Fashion, architecture, design? Never studied any of it. Around 2011, Camp Korea ran into regulatory trouble. The company held an internal business idea competition. Kim, an executive at the time, pitched one word: eyewear. His reasoning was simple. The eyewear market has no dominant player and no real domestic K-brand. It is wide open. Camp Korea CEO Oh Jae-wook saw the idea and made a decision. $36,000. He gave Kim a shot. As of 2025, the company is valued at roughly $3.2 billion. Oh Jae-wook remains the largest shareholder at 44% stake. Do the math. $1.4 billion on a 36,000 check. About 40,000 return. Think about it. An education company CEO, not a venture capitalist, not a fashion industry insider, bet on an employee's untested idea and became one of the most successful angel investors in Korean history. April 2011, Gentle Monster launches. Initial strategy: copy luxury designs, sell at 1/5 the price. Plus a home try system. Consumers pick 5 frames online, get them shipped home, free return. Returned glasses were donated to Korea and India. It sounded like the future of retail, but the result was an epic failure. Shipping costs alone were killing them. Returns piled up. Inventory sat gathering dust. 5 months in, $71,000 in cumulative sales, barely enough to keep the lights on. Let's look at the Korean eyewear market at that time. Fashion eyewear brands imported into Korea offered 5 to 10 styles. Why so few? Because inventory is expensive. Each unsold frame is dead capital on a shelf. So most brands played it safe. Neutral colors, classic shapes, nothing too bold. Kim looked at this and thought, everyone is playing not to lose. What if we play to win? His idea was to make glasses where 1 out of 2 won't sell. Within the first year, Gentle Monster designed 40 styles. While others played it safe with 5 to 10, Gentle Monster poured out 4 to 8 times more, knowing half won't sell. Some had geometric shapes that looked like modern art. Some had asymmetric frames. Kim Han-guk would later say, we wanted to offer newness and surprise, but we had no money to do anything, because we had no money. He wanted a store on Hongdae's main street, but couldn't afford the rent. He walked door to door to optical shops trying to supply them, rejected everywhere because of the bold designs. Kim thought, if they won't let us in, we'll make consumers come directly to us. The answer was to make the store itself so interesting that people had to visit. 2013, Seoul Nonhyundong. Architecture training? None. But Kim partnered with a design studio and opened the first offline store. They found a house with a yard, and they did something nobody expected. They put a boat in the yard, not a small interior decoration, a full-sized boat. And the boat's bow was breaking through the wall into the store. The symbolism reads itself. Gentle Monster's voyage begins. People walking by stopped. They stared, they took photos, and they came inside. Traditional optical shops looked like medical clinics, sterile, forgettable. Gentle Monster looked like an art installation that happened to sell glasses. People said he was crazy, but that was exactly the goal. If people are not calling you crazy, you are not thinking big enough. The Nonhyun store created buzz, but buzz does not pay bills. First year revenue in 2011 was roughly $80,000. 2012, modest growth, nothing spectacular. By early 2013, $3.5 million, but still no product market fit. The bold designs attracted attention, but conversion was low. People came to look, fewer came to buy. Kim Hang-guk needed to understand his customer. He sought advice from a women's clothing brand CEO, someone who understood the female customer. One line came back. Women wear big frames because they make your face look smaller. In Korea and across Asia, there is enormous social pressure around appearance. A smaller face reads as more attractive, a cultural beauty standard, fair or not. Imported sunglasses at the time were designed for Western faces, smaller lenses. Westerners have relatively smaller faces, so they did not need large lenses. But for Asian customers, small lenses made the face look bigger by comparison. Nobody in the industry had acted on this. Kim created 6 styles with oversized lenses, big, bold, face-covering designs. And then he waited. Around that time, the 2013 K-drama My Love from the Star was filming. It would become one of the biggest Korean dramas in history, launching the first K-drama wave to unprecedented heights across Asia. The main stylist was sourcing accessories for the show's lead, Chun Ji-hyun, one of Korea's biggest stars with massive influence in China and Southeast Asia. The stylist saw Gentle Monster's products, loved them, passed them to Chun Ji-hyun. Chun Ji-hyun wore 4 out of the 6 oversized styles on screen. The show aired, and something extraordinary happened. Chun Ji-hyun's character was named Chun Song-hee, a glamorous, fashionable actress. When she wore those sunglasses on screen, millions of viewers across Asia thought, I want to look like her. The craze spread like wildfire across China, Southeast Asia, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. Gentle Monster's website crashed from traffic. Chinese tourists flooded into Korea specifically to buy these sunglasses. 2014 revenue projections surpassed $16 million, roughly a 4-times jump from the previous year. In 2015, Lotte department store research showed Gentle Monster was the #1 domestic brand purchased by Chinese tourists at the Seoul flagship. Not Samsung, not Korean Cosmetics, Gentle Monster. It wasn't even PPL or paid marketing, just a simple product sponsorship. Yet, it generated more buzz than the luxury brand sunglasses Chun Ji-hyun was paid to model for. After this, Gentle Monster repositioned eyewear from functional product to fashion item. They were no longer competing with optical shops. They were competing with fashion brands. At this point, most brands would double down on what worked. Expand distribution, open more stores, hire celebrity ambassadors, run TV ads. Gentle Monster did none of that. Instead, Kim bet on a different playbook. Make stores so interesting that people visit them like museums. Kim Hang-guk's philosophy: products can be bought online, but experiences only exist offline. When you visit an Apple store, you're not just buying a phone. You're experiencing Apple's worldview, the minimalist aesthetics, the vibe that makes you feel smart for choosing Apple. Gentle Monster decided to buy this concept. 2014, the Quantum Project, Kim's boldest experiment begins. Hongdae flagship store. Most retail stores refresh displays every season, maybe 4 times a year. Gentle Monster refreshed every 25 days. No products on the first floor, none. There was art installations instead. Every 25 days, complete change. Theme, exhibition, interior, and content. The result was 36 projects over 2.5 years. When flowers were the theme, they covered the entire first floor with fresh blooms. Thousands of dollars in flowers that would die within days. Most retailers would call this insane. They're using prime retail space for art that does not sell. But Kim understood constant change is the brand experience. 2016, Bad Project, a store that sells nothing. Vertical farm in the basement, pop-up cafe, a full cornfield you would walk through. A red room stacked with 100 comic books around a 100 million year old fossilized wood centerpiece. Retail orthodoxy, every square meter must generate revenue. Bad generated 0. The bet was simple. Brand equity eventually will generate more than direct sales ever could. 2021, House Dosan, where robots walk inside the store. Peak of COVID-19. While other brands were closing stores, Gentle Monster opened a 5-story flagship. The 6-legged robot in the eyewear section. Robotic arms in the cosmetics section. 2,000 weekday visitors, 4,000 on weekends. 2024, House Nowhere Seoul, the culmination of a worldview. Gentle Monster opens House Nowhere. Total floor area over 30,000 square meters, 14 floors. These stores look insane, but hidden behind every one of these strange experiments is a margin secret. The engine that turned Gentle Monster into a money-printing monster machine, running an 84% gross margin. Time to open the hood. Gentle Monster's operating margin, the number after you pay for stores, staff, advertising, and rent, is around 30%. This is Gucci level. LVMH group average runs 25 to 27%. Zara 15 to 20%. H&M about 10%. How did they do this? 3 layers stacked. First is vertical integration. Let's break down the traditional optical shop model. First, the buying cycle. Most people only buy new glasses every 2 to 3 years. Everybody who wears glasses knows this drill. Because customers show up so rarely, shops stock every style imaginable. They cannot miss the one sale when it finally happens. For this reason, every 1 pair sold, there are 9 more in inventory, a massive carrying cost. To compensate, optical shops buy wholesale at steep discounts and mark up 5 to 10 times to customers. In the old model, a brand makes a frame for $10 to $15, sells it to an optical shop at $30, and the shop marks it up 5 to 10 times to $150 to $200. A slow, expensive game of survival. Gentle Monster does not play this game. They design in-house. They manufacture primarily in China. They sell in their own stores and their own website. No optical shop in between. Manufacturing cost per unit, roughly $35. Retail price, roughly $225. Gross profit per unit equals $190. That's your 84%. But a fat gross margin does not survive on its own. If your capital sits dead on shelves, or your ad spend balloons, layer 1 gets eaten alive, which brings us to layer 2. A traditional optical shop takes 2 to 3 years to clear its stock. Gentle Monster turns its inventory every 133 days, about 4 months. Inventory turnover is a fancy way of saying how long a company holds its inventory before selling it. 2024 Gentle Monster's inventory was $37 million, just 6.5% of revenue, thin. While everyone else is sitting on dead inventory for years, Gentle Monster is moving 5 to 6 times faster, effectively capturing and compounding that 500% markup into pure profit. Their brand power is so strong that the product never has time to get dusty. Dead inventory is death for a business. Every unsold frame sitting on a shelf is capital you cannot use for anything else. Risk of styles going out of fashion, and storage and carrying cost. Gentle Monster's fast turnover means lower inventory risk, faster cash conversion cycle, and the ability to experiment with new designs without catastrophic downside. This velocity is the secret fuel of their profitability, and the proof that the marketing is working. But Gentle Monster's advertising expense on its books is not that high. 2024 advertising expense, $24 million, 4% of revenue. A typical fashion brand spends 10 to 15% of revenue. Gentle Monster spends less than half what competitors do on ads. Then how did its marketing work? The space marketing that Kim stressed for over a decade became its secret. The stores themselves are the advertisement. When you build a store with a 6-legged walking robot, people come to see the robot. They take pictures, post on Instagram, tag the brand. Free marketing. When tourists visit Seoul and add Gentle Monster House Dosan to their itinerary, like its Gyeongbokgung Palace, that is free marketing. So yes, they spent roughly $65 million building House Nowhere. But that is not just the cost. It's a marketing investment disguised as real estate. In other words, Gentle Monster keeps the 500% markup themselves while using the space as a marketing expense. Smart. By the way, House Nowhere cost roughly $65 million to build, but current estimated real value is over $200 million. Seongsu, once an old shoemaking district, is now the Brooklyn of Seoul. The land itself appreciated. So the same dollar did 2 jobs. Ad spending stays at 4% instead of 12%, and the building appreciates as real estate. That is the financial double dip, a marketing budget that turns into an appreciating asset. This is why Gentle Monster's multi-billion-dollar value tag is defensible. The math underneath is not just a story. It is 3 layers of integration that most brands either can't or won't build. However, starting in 2025, those layers started showing cracks. For the first time in history, Gentle Monster's growth stalled. In 2025, IICOMBINED's audited filings show the cracks in detail. Start with revenue. 2024, $564 million. 2025, $540 million, down about 2%. 2%, that is a rounding error for most companies. And honestly, if that was the only story, there would be no story. But here's where the structure of this business matters. Gentle Monster runs high fixed cost, the robots, the installations, the staff to maintain 14-story flagships. When revenue is rising, those fixed costs get absorbed. and the operating margin looks brilliant. When revenue slips, even slightly, those same fixed costs does not move. The hit lands entirely on profit. Operating profit, $167 million in 2024, $126 million in 2025. That is a 24% drop on a 2% revenue decline. The margin went from 29.6% to 22.9%, 700 basis points gone in a single year. This is operating leverage working in reverse. When you build a cost structure designed to scale with growth, a small pullback in revenue does not produce a small pullback in profit. It produces a much bigger one. Still, a 22.9% operating margin is better than almost anyone in fashion. But it's also the first meaningful reversal since the company was founded. And it happened in a very specific window. September 2025, Jennie's long partnership with Gentle Monster ended. The next day, she appeared at a Ray-Ban pop-up in Seoul, the same neighborhood as House Nowhere. And Ray-Ban is owned by Luxottica, the same giant Gentle Monster set out to disrupt 14 years ago. Jennie was not just a paid model who wore a few frames. She co-designed 3 collections: Gentle House in 2020, Gentle Garden in 2022, and Gentle Salon in 2024. For almost 5 years, she was the face of the brand to a generation of global consumers. Roughly 90 million Instagram followers worth of reach. That reach is hard to replace. At the same time, a second K eyewear brand has been growing fast. Blue Elephant, founded in 2019, currently led by CEO Jinwoo Choi. Flagship stores in Hongdae and Myeongdong. KED Global framed it as the K eyewear battle for global attention. Blue Elephant benchmarked the formula: experiential flagships, Korean street culture aesthetics, rapid new launches, at a price point of around $35, roughly 1/6 what Gentle Monster charges. 1/6 the price, same playbook. Which raises the harder question: if the formula is accessible enough to replicate at $35, what exactly is Gentle Monster's moat? The story gets more complicated in March 2026, but that is a separate video. Though the question stops being, is Gentle Monster still successful? It becomes, has luxury without heritage finally hit the wall? In June 2025, Google wrote a $100 million check. 4% of the company at a valuation at $2.7 billion. Google tried smart glasses once before, Google Glass, in 2013. It failed. Not on specs, but on the design. It looked like a device for engineers, not a product for humans. Meta learned that lesson and hired Ray-Ban. Google in 2025 decided to answer with a 4-way alliance. Target launch 2026. Google is expecting Gentle Monster to bring the design, brand power, and the hype. Then in September 2025, the valuation ladder moved once again. Korean media reported that L Catterton Asia is now valuing IICOMBINED at $3.2 billion, while actively considering additional investment 8 years after the 2017 round at $600 million, a 5.3 times markup. So here's where the story lands. $36,000 in 2011, a $3.2 billion company in 2025, over 40,000 times on the original check. No fashion heritage, no design school, no luxury conglomerate behind it at the start. A 6-legged robot in Apgujeong, a 14-story building in Seongsu, an 84% gross margin built by cutting the middleman, a 4% ad budget held in place by tourists who marketed the brand for free. That is the first Asian eyewear brand to match luxury's margin without luxury's heritage. And it is also a company whose operating profit just fell 24% in a year, and whose most iconic ambassador now wears the competitor's frames. Both are true at the same time. Whether luxury without heritage turns out to be the first chapter of a new playbook or the ceiling of an old one, that answer is not in 2025. It is in the next 3 years. And here's the final takeaway from Gentle Monster's journey. There is no use lamenting what you don't have. The real job is to keep asking what you do have and build every edge on what you possess. By successfully doing that, Gentle Monster turned $36,000 initial investment into what it is today. Thanks for watching the Coup Report. I'm Ko, and I'll see you in the next report.